Okay, thank you for attending this presentation on the Microsoft Office training for Cool Widget employees. My name is Stephen Edmonson, your project manager, and the reporting period for this status update is the first week of April 2018. Okay, so here we have a bit of an overview just so you know what to expect. This report is going to discuss a few different project updates. First, we're going to take a look at what we hope to accomplish and where we stand in relationship to those original goals. Secondly, we're going to examine what the milestones are that we've already accomplished, what's already behind us, and then we'll also take a look at what lies in the road ahead of us. Lastly, we'll take a quick view of a visual representation of the progress we've made, and we're going to open everything up to some questions. So let's take a look at the overall status of the project itself. There was one major goal we had in mind with this project, and that's to train 500 of our Cool Widget employees in the use of the Microsoft Office programs. We began this endeavor on December the 4th, and we had 12 months to deliver the training and completion, with the initial training sessions beginning in March. So all of the 3 months before March, we were intending on using to create our plan and to develop material and have everything set in stone. The project does need to be completed using a budget of $200,000. Okay, so where are we at today? The overall project status is being listed as yellow. That decision was based off of 3 contributing factors. The original work breakdown structure, which we will revisit later in the presentation, that's mostly still being adhered to, so that's good news. However, we did experience a bit of a delay in receiving the approvals for the outline, and that means that some of the training material is still being developed. The final sessions in the training outline are still underway, and that's actually taking place simultaneously while the trainers are delivering. So that was a bit off track, and because of that, we're going to go ahead and call this yellow. We were also forced to outsource the New York training, which affected our budget, and that's going to leave us with a bit of a tight crunch, meaning we'll probably need to cut back somewhere, and the most likely contender is going to be the catering plan that the employees would typically have been enjoying. That's probably the best place for us to maintain our efficiency without compromising any of our quality. So lastly, the training timing is still on target, and we're going to call that a green. Everything looks like it's still in line to be completed within our original time frame. Okay, so let's look at some of the milestones we've reached and what we've accomplished so far. The very first milestone you see listed here is developing the outline itself. As I mentioned previously, this is an area where we had to be a little flexible based off of the necessary approvals. There was a delay. However, it's definitely got the ball rolling, and that is good enough to help us stay on target for the overall training. So I'm going to consider that a positive and say that we did reach it. Selecting locations for each trainer. Okay, so this just sort of talks about getting everybody in the right place according to their experience. California had the highest employee volume that was necessary, so that individual was assigned, and everyone is in place. So that's great. That also includes their travel and their schedules, and that does also extend to our New York office with the resource that they were assigned through a local company. And then lastly, the students were notified that the mandatory training has begun. They were given some notice in addition to that in advance, and that was accomplished with the help from local employees who are familiar with a way to send out a email blast to their particular office. Okay, so there's always going to be issues that creep up throughout a project that aren't expected, and so that's what this is. We're going to go ahead and talk about what we've seen and what's affecting the project today. One of the first issues I'm noticing is that there is a lot of downtime in between training sessions. The individuals that are visiting each location are requested to be there at a minimum of 1 week at a time. So what that means is that they do have about 2.5 weeks, 2.5 week periods where they are more or less just taking questions from their trainees and responding to basically support issues. So what that boils down to is we actually need to keep them a little bit busier, and that leads into my second point here. Based on the experience that these individuals have and the service they're providing, their compensation split, I don't know, 4 or 5 different ways if you include the extra resource in New York. Considering a budget of $200,000, they are not being compensated fairly. I think that the way that we can correct that, or something I'd like to offer as far as suggestions, is that we assign them some additional tasks, give them some additional duties that do justify an increase in their pay and an increase in our budget as a result. There's got to be some work, either whether it's at each location individually, or if there is another project they can begin at the same time. It looks like, based on the Gantt chart and some of the other materials, that they do have some additional wiggle room in their schedules here. So next, we also have the finalization of the outline, as we mentioned a few times. We do need to tackle that as soon as possible, just to make sure we're prepared for the end processes here, and that is going to require some collaboration between their managers as well as each trainer. Lastly, we have the California workload issue. It turns out that that is a bit heavy, and I've witnessed this myself. That's definitely a heavy workload, and what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to split some of that task up and divide and conquer here a little bit. The employee volume is more than double at this location than each of the others. So what we were considering is bringing in individuals from the other locations during some of those off time, or during some of that off time, and potentially having them time that with the California reps so that there are 2 hands on deck for those. Additionally, I would like to suggest that we switch everything over to a distribution list in terms of questions and feedback. That way, anybody can answer questions and feedback from any location. Since the software is the same, it's uniform everywhere. There's really no reason that all of those questions from those 200 employees in California need to be funneled to that one individual. Okay, so let's take a peek at the milestones we can expect to accomplish here within the next 8 months. The good news is most of the complex parts of this project are behind us. The planning phase was really where we saw the necessary detail. At this point, we are simply delivering the training we have prepared ourselves for. So we've got 8 months. Again, we got 8 months to do that, and then at the end we will complete a student survey where we will collect feedback that we can use to improve the projects in the future, or maybe just improve the training material that we can provide new team members during onboarding, if that's necessary as well. Either way, we'll collect all of this, and the feedback will be maintained. Lastly, we don't want to leave everybody high and dry, so we're going to send a bit of support information to the team members because this is going to still be new, and especially since the final days of training may tackle a subject that we won't be around for when it comes in terms of questions. We want to make sure they have a line that they can contact, or at least an email address where they can reach out with questions if they do have support, or even maybe remind them that IT is available as well. So finally, we have the current Gantt chart here for you. As promised, I just wanted to take a brief moment to show you a visual representation of where we are in the project. So we're finally we're in the long haul. We're in the last stretch here. The next 8 months will be focused on 2 simple things: the delivery of the training we've prepared and the eventual student survey. The resources needed to complete the project at this point have been limited to the trainers themselves, so really everybody else that was involved has stepped aside, and everything should be smooth sailing from now on. Okay, so thank you again for attending the presentation, and at this point I'd like to open up the discussion for any questions. And if you do think of something and it doesn't pop up now, you can always send me an email at mrsteven@coolwidgetfake.com. I'd be happy to reply then. Thank you very much for your time, and if there's nothing, I hope you have a great day.